Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I hope you will consider subscribing. So we are starting to enter into the holiday season, which means gift giving, right? And I know many of you love to give your home canned goods as gifts. So today we are going to be making a recipe from the Ball Canning website that is called Cranberry Orange Pear Jam. This would be Ball's take on Christmas jam. Now I do already have a Christmas jam recipe on my channel, so I will be sure to link it in an iCard in the description box below. The base of this obviously is cranberries. So for those of you who love cranberries, this is right up your alley, but it is going to be fantastic to not only have ready for the holidays, but to also be used for gift giving. It's really pretty and very, very yummy. So like I said, the star of the show is obviously going to be cranberries. We need 6 cups of fresh cranberries. Now, the 12-ounce bags that you buy in the grocery store, if you buy the regular normal size bag, it's approximately 11 point something ounces. It's almost 12 ounces. That yields a little over 3 cups. So I don't like wasting anything, so I use 2 full bags. By the time you rinse your cranberries off and you pick out the ones that you don't want to use in your recipe because they're shriveled up or popped open or whatever, you're gonna get about the 6 cups from 2 of the 11 point whatever ounce bags. If you're weighing it, it's about 1.5 pounds of fresh cranberries. You're also going to need 3 cups of diced pears. I use Bartlett and I would recommend sticking with the Bartlett pear. I know someone's going to ask me if you can use Asian pears. I would not use Asian pears. We are cautioned against using them in canning unless they are acidified. So I would just stay away from using those and stick with Bartlett. You could also use red pears, I guess. I'm sure there are other varieties out there, but Bartlett would be what I would suggest you use. Ball doesn't state what type of pear necessarily, but I would stay away from Asian pears. You need 4 cups of sugar, 1 cup of orange juice, 2 tablespoons of orange zest, 1 tablespoon of fresh ground ginger or fresh grated ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ground allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/8 teaspoon of ground clove. You can always change up the spices any way you want to. For those of you who've hung around my channel very long, you know that I like to be bougie, especially around the holidays. We are going to make ours a little bit special, a little bit extra today. I'm going to be adding a couple of tablespoons of Grand Marnier. This is a cognac and orange flavored liqueur. It is absolutely heavenly in jams and jellies. It has a really nice depth of flavor that you can't get any other way. It is completely optional, so if you do not want to put liquor in your jam, you can certainly leave it out. You could also use Cointreau. You could use any liqueur that is cranberry, pear, or orange flavored would be fantastic here. Even spiced rum would be nice. To add a little bit of something extra in the background, you only need a couple of tablespoons to add that extra flavor, but it really adds a nice depth of a little bit of something extra that you just can't get any other way. So the thing that I want to mention here is we are not going to be adding any commercial pectin. Cranberries and pears also. They both have a lot of natural pectin in them, so we don't need to add anymore. We're just going to put all of our ingredients in the pot and cook it till it reaches 220 degrees, which is the gel stage for jams and jellies. So you're going to need a candy thermometer. If you don't have a candy thermometer, you can always use the other ways to test for gelling, and I will leave a link in the description box for you to easily find access to that information if you don't have a candy thermometer or you choose to not use one for whatever reason. I am going to be using my candy thermometer. I like that I know for sure that it has reached 220 degrees. So I'm going to bring you in close and we're going to get started. Okay guys, we are all set to get started. So we are going to put all of our ingredients together all at once. We're going to add our 6 cups of cranberries, 3 cups of diced pear, 1 cup of orange juice, 4 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons of fresh orange zest, and 1 tablespoon of freshly grated ginger. And then for our spices, I have a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, I have a half a teaspoon of ground allspice, a quarter of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves. We're gonna give that a stir, and we're gonna bring this up to a boil over medium-high heat. Once it comes to a boil, we are going to reduce our heat and just maintain a low boil until our jam reaches a temperature of 220 degrees. So you're going to need a thermometer for this. If you don't have a thermometer, you can always do the gelling test, and I will leave links in the description box below describing how to do a gel test so that you know when your jam is ready for canning. Okay guys, we've got our jam going at a nice low boil here, and I have inserted my digital thermometer. I will leave a link in the description box below to this one or something similar. Many of you have asked me about this thermometer, but a candy thermometer, just a regular candy thermometer, works well also. So we just want to continue to cook it like this, stirring to make sure nothing is sticking or burning on the bottom. And just keep an eye on it. If you've never cooked cranberries before, you will hear them pop open. That's very normal. That's a very normal sound for them to make. So don't be surprised by that if you're new to cooking cranberries. So we're just going to let this continue to go until we reach 220 degrees, which is the gel stage for jams. So while that's happening, I'm going to get my canner and my jars ready, and then we will be all set for canning. Okay guys, we have reached 220 degrees, so I'm going to turn my heat off and remove my thermometer. And just to kick it up a notch, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of Grand Marnier, so you want to make sure that you turn it off the heat before you add it. And I'm going to add just a couple of tablespoons. Give that a stir, and then we are all set for canning. The one thing that I did want to note is the closer you get to the 220 degrees, the more you are going to want to stir it to keep it from sticking on the bottom. Okay guys, we are all set for canning. Modern canning guidelines state that we do not need to pre-sterilize jars or lids if we're going to be processing for 10 minutes or more. We are going to be processing for 10 minutes, so I just washed my jars and kept them hot in my canner. The lids I washed and set aside. Now you want to make sure, this is a recipe for water bath or steam canning, of course. I'm going to be steam canning, so I have 3 quarts of simmering water in the bottom of my steam canner. If you are water bath canning, you want to make sure you have enough water in your canner to cover your jars by at least 1 inch. So we are going to ladle our jam into our jars to 1/4 inch headspace. Now I did want to mention I left my pears a little bit on the larger side. You might want to cut them up a little bit smaller. The recipe just says to dice them, and I left them kind of big, but it just depends on if you want a chunky jam or if you want, or if you want one that's not so chunky. It's just a texture thing. It's entirely up to you, but mine are a little bit on the large side this time. All right, once you get your jam in your jar to about 1/4 inch headspace, you want to use a debubbling tool, plastic butter knife, or chopstick to release any air bubbles. So just poke around your jar. If your headspace changes, you can top it off. Mine looks pretty good. So then we're going to take a paper towel dipped in white vinegar to clean our rims. The white vinegar just helps to make sure that we're getting rid of any of the jam on the rim that could interfere with getting a good seal. And you're gonna center your lid. And add your rings to fingertip tight. And then in the canner they go. Okay, I got about 6 jelly jars full of our jam, and that's about what the recipe said that we would get. Like I said, the only thing I would do a little bit differently is chop my pears a little bit smaller. I was expecting the pears to break down a little more than they did, but again, it's up to you. However chunky or unchunky you want it, that's entirely up to you. So I'm steam canning, so I'm gonna wait for my dial gauge to come up to the proper temperature on my gauge. For those of you who are water bath canning, make sure you have enough water in your pot to cover your jars by at least 1 inch, and you are going to start, you're going to make sure that your water comes up to a full rolling boil before you start your processing time. I'm looking for my dial gauge to be in the green zone before I start my processing time. So when you get there, you're going to process for 10 minutes and then let your jar sit for about 5, and then we are all set, and I will bring you back. I want to show you how beautiful that jam is. Doesn't that look absolutely gorgeous? So pretty and absolutely delicious. I was going to give you a close-up of it. So anyway, I wanted to show you how nice it sets up. This has started to cool and it is setting up very, very nicely. Mine is pretty chunky because I diced my pears a little bit on the big side. I was expecting them to break down a little more than they did in the jam. They didn't, so I have a chunky Christmas jam, but that's totally fine. I think it makes it so pretty. And adds a little bit of texture. I will say that this recipe has more texture to it because of the cranberries than the other Christmas jam that I did. So if you don't like the texture of fresh cranberry sauce, you may not like this jam. You may prefer the other Christmas jam instead. I think it's a little bit smoother in texture, so just keep that in mind, but this is absolutely delicious. Perfect for those of you who love cranberries and wonderful for gift giving. So thanks for coming along with me today, guys. If you have any comments or questions, as always, leave them in the comment section below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have a fantastic day and I will see you next time.